Hello and welcome to another drive-in double feature. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before I get into anything at all, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast. Nathan, I was at the grocery store once again, and I was looking at the eggs, and
Oh,
I'm just like, oh my gosh, these egg prices are so expensive. And someone said, I know, but you know what's not expensive? It's the Patreon that for the Drive and Double Feature podcast, where it has all kinds of fun games, conversations, just a good old time over there on Patreon that I just support and love so dearly. And then I said, "Oh yeah, that's pretty interesting." And they said, "I hope Nathan and Ryan just know how much we support them and love their podcast." And I said, "I think they know."
I
Eh.
I do think we know. Also, I would say that our Patreon is more sustenance than some dumb eggs. So I'd say I'd recommend doing that instead. Mhm.
Yeah, Nathan's the egg white, which is really good for you. I'm the egg yolk, which is very rich and tasty. So
Oh, okay. All right. I guess that's a fine comparison.
so stupid. Uh, but
It's like a hard boiled egg. Yeah. Oh man.
but anyway, check that out. It's only $5 a month. Go on and support us. But today we are talking about 1999's Gamera 3, which is once again directed by Shusuke Kaneko. This is the third movie of the trilogy and the last movie. Um, this one is right around the time of 1999, so we're getting really close to Y2K. It's only about a year from there. And this movie, I mean, because I listened to the commentary, is more of a play on like a lot of apocalyptic type of stuff in this
Mhm.
movie, which this movie does sort of have like a little bit of a feel to it towards the end. Because back in 1999, I remember, I don't know if you were cognizant then, but
Not enough to remember Y2K.
but I remember people freaking out about Y2K.
Hmm.
And even back in 1999, people being like, the world is going to end in the year 2000. Like, as soon as New Year's happens, it's like the world is going to implode, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've heard stories about it, which is I don't know. It's crazy to think that like I mean they had it was a thing, I guess, that they actually had like government organizations changing the clock or fixing and updating things. But of course, the world didn't end. People, we're here, or we're living in like Ryan's
No,
brain
this
after
no,
he
this is the
died.
sec this is the second world. They got rebuilt.
Wake up, Ryan. This this podcast is in your brain. You're in a Y2K coma.
Oh my God.
The
But
past 25 years didn't haven't happened.
yeah,
Mhm.
that would be something.
Yeah, it would be something. Be a little whack. Would
I'm
you
good.
come searching for me? Would you like try to find me?
Like if I wake up and it's 25 years later and I never have met you personally,
But I'm real. Somehow, like your
you're real.
brain.
That created a real person that I'd never
Yeah.
met before.
Yeah, somehow your brain did. We're on a
I
tangent.
bet. And you're like, who the hell are you?
Well, no, okay, so it makes sense because maybe you saw me when I was like 3 years old, and then like you somehow like your brain processed this older version of me, and you did it really well, by the way.
I'm just like, I know this guy's gonna look like when he's 25.
He's gonna get glasses. He's gonna have a beer.
Yep. But
But that's
anyway,
too much.
no, but anyway, the point I'm trying to make is like people thought the world was going to end. Like I even remember going into one of my friend's house, like when it got close to 2000, he had like a whole bedroom full of water, thinking that the
Oh,
world was gonna end.
oh my God.
Um, but just to give you an idea, but yeah, that's kind of what they wrote into this movie a little bit. And this one I would say is more of a horror movie than anything because there is a giant monster into this movie called Iris,
Mm,
but it's the main the main plot of this one is that Iris, this monster, is being attached to this little girl, and Gamera is in it, but not that much, to be quite honest. So
Yeah, it's definitely an Iris movie. It's its thing. Yeah, no, I was a little disappointed by that Gamera is barely in this movie, but this movie is like its own like flavor of things. Like this feels far removed from the last two movies, in my opinion.
yeah, and I'm not really. I guess they were trying to do like its own thing because what they were trying to do, from what I gathered, is we had like the girl from the first movie that had this emotional connection, or like with Gamera,
Hmm.
and they wanted to kind of do the inverse of that, where this girl has a connection with the main monster of this movie, and that's kind of what they were leaning into.
But what
Um,
if it was a bad guy kind of deal?
right.
Yeah.
And how this movie starts, it does show um, during the very first movie when Gamera was fighting Gauss
Hmm.
that Gamera did actually cause some collateral damage while he was fighting Gauss and ends up killing this girl's entire family.
Yeah, it's actually my favorite part of this movie. Because the way it's shot, I don't know if you felt this way. It's very dynamic. It's all low to the ground. It feels like a modern Godzilla movie, where like cameras are looking up at it, so it feels more like Gamera's destroying you, like people are getting killed. It's a more it's a darker view of everything, and there's just some really great stuff of the parents searching around the home for their cat Iris. And and it's got like a weird color grade, but they look out the window and they watch Gamera walk by. And I actually thought that was a really like good way to sell like how someone could hate Gamera, because all these movies you're supposed to be like, oh, Gamera's the hero, he's a savior, but this gives some more understanding to that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would do like about this one is that you don't really think about that when you watch a Godzilla movie or another
Mhm.
kaiju movie where it's just like they're running around destroying buildings or like they get thrown into a building or something. It's like you think about it, it's like there was probably somebody in that building and they died.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like Gamera wasn't the hero to that person that day. But if it was a kid, it would have like Gamera would have stopped in its tracks, made sure it was okay, reached in and saved him. But some adult, nah, they can just die.
Yeah. And I do like that element, but what I don't like about this movie is that they still continue to question if Gamera is a
Oh my
good or
God.
bad.
In this
And I'm
one,
like,
it takes them so long in this one. Like it's like the end of the movie when they decide that Gamera is like a good guy.
yeah, and it's an excruciating detail, I feel like, whether they're just like belaboring like if Gamera is good or not. And
Mhm.
it's I know I'm just like, okay, like I kind of understand like maybe you would do it like in the first two movies, like the first one it's just like who is this monster? And but then the second one being like, how do we know for sure he's good? But then that's when it's like, are we really sure he's good though? And it's like he has saved the world twice. Like you guys would be completely toast if this was not for Gamera.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you're questioning if this is a good or bad thing.
Yeah, which is, and I mean, like, yeah, it just gets a little tiring. But there is one thing that I think is cool about this movie, Ryan. It has a Dreamcast. A Dreamcast is like a plot point in this movie, which is like literally a guy invites a girl over and it's like, hey, you want to watch me play this weird video game where there's like an orb on screen, and it's like, yeah, I gotta keep balance of the world, and she even plays it too. Whatever this video game is, it's such an odd idea.
It's like you were like searching on eBay like as soon as
Gamera
like oh
game. I mean,
camera game. I want.
it's so odd because like I didn't understand the game while they were explaining it. It was like, oh, we gotta maintain balance to the world, and all you see is like an orb moving around. It's like they didn't think about it.
Yeah, no, I I really like little nods like that where you're just like, look there, I remember that.
Yeah, no, that I
Well,
think that's it's cool. Like you said, now I'm starting to realize that Y2K flair is there because it has a Dreamcast, which is like from the 90s into the 2000s, old computers. There's a character that's like a hacker almost who's like surrounded by computers. Loved his place. Like with the old CRT television. I didn't like the character, I will say that, but I liked where he lived.
no, yeah, I liked like all the little cool 90s stuff in there. Like
Yeah.
especially like in the second one, like or
Yes.
like the website got eaten
Gets
or
sucked
whatever.
away like a
Yeah.
vacuum.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah,
Uh,
no.
uh,
I'm excited to get into the 90s Godzillas because I feel like those are going to be very similar to this.
yeah. But anyway, the main plot of this movie is this girl Ayana. Like I said, her entire family gets destroyed by Gamera, so she's forced to go live with her aunt and uncle, and she's kind of an outcast in school. Nobody likes her or anything like that. There's this mean girl group that's kind of pushing her around, and she ends up finding this little monster, like a little like egg monster called,
Hmm.
and she names it Iris because she names it after her cat,
Yeah.
and she does form a bond with it, and as the monster gets bigger, it starts becoming more violent, and that's where it kind of turns into like a horror movie type thing where Ayana is her name,
Hmm.
and at one point Iris gets so big, like Iris actually sucks Ayana into its body and then like
Yeah.
melds with her.
It's such an you're the bigger expert in this, but watching this felt like an anime plot. It really did. It felt
Mhm.
so like out there, this idea of like the both of them being interconnected. It's evil, and that whole scene where it gets sucked in. Maybe it's because it's so animated. Even more than the last ones, they rely so heavily on CGI in this movie.
So funny you should mention that. In the commentary during that scene,
Mm-hmm.
they had mentioned they're like, "Oh, originally Ayana was going to be naked in that
Oh
scene,"
my
and
god.
yeah,
Why?
and they said, but, but they decided against it because they didn't want it to be too much like tentacle porn.
Yeah, that's probably the connection I made. Good Lord. Yeah, because that's what it is. It's literally like this girl being floated up and the tentacles are reaching around her and everything. I guess I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, that scene specifically just gave this like odd vibe. I wish it played into that more. I wish it was a little more weird. I know people really like
You
this
wish
one.
for more tentacles?
Yeah, I wish it was a weirdo movie. I don't know. I because I like that idea, but personally, I thought the movie was a little boring. I do. I think it was a little slow at times and just wasn't what without Gamera in it. There just it didn't capture my interest like the other two, which I guess is a not the number one opinion on this. I guess a lot of people love this one. A lot of people consider this the best of the three.
Yeah. A lot of people love this one. It
Hmm.
does have a really big following.
Hmm.
Like I said before, I am more of a campier fan, and
Hmm.
I think it's kind of strayed a little too far from Gamera, like in this one a little bit,
Hmm.
but that's just my opinion. I like the Gamera to be a little more silly, like a little more child friendly type of thing.
Yeah,
But
that's like my favorite part is like the Gamera friend to all kids. I think that's a fun angle. And then this one is just like so dark. It's like very it's a very dreary movie at times.
it's the very brooding type of movie. And like I said, Gamera is not in it all that much. I mean, he kind of gets like annihilated by Iris, and then he kind of disappears for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the very end, he comes in and saves the day, obviously. But the main selling point, like I said, is Ayana and Iris, and I mean, I was interested a little bit, but then that's just like I felt like it was a little too much
Hmm.
of that dynamic. Almost, I'm just like, okay, I'm getting a little bit of overkill here.
Yeah, no, I agree because it really dives really deep into that, where it's like a cave that's protected by an old lady, and like there's a lot of scenes of her with the egg. I guess also I would like more connections to the older ones because I really like Steven Seagal's daughter's character, Asagi, I think is her name. I actually like her a lot, and she shows back up in this, and I just she's not in it enough. I really would have liked in this trilogy to have a nice through line like her. But I mean, they also forget about her for most of the second one as well. So I guess it'd be weird to bring her like totally back.
Well, originally she was barely going to have like almost no part in this movie, but
Really.
because they said because her part like because of like the inverse of the two stories, it's like, well, we kind of have to bring her back because since she's
Hmm.
the inverse of the of Ayana and Iris. But I would have liked to have been something like her been like a more of a focal point of like the trilogy, like if she was like the main character
Yeah.
and it was kind of like her going through like her daily life or something, and then it's like she could detect like what Gamera was up to at all times. Like that kind of would have
Yeah.
been kind of fun, I think. But um
But
yeah,
it, that just isn't what it is, I guess. You can't complain about it too much. It's that's more of a like if I was the one making the movie, that would be what I would do.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
But Gamera does show up and does kill Iris in there like by shoving its arm in its body and like pulling out like all of its guts.
Yeah.
Um, and then this movie relies very heavily on CGI.
Yes. And I don't know about
There
you,
are,
but that like kind of turned me off a little bit of this movie. This movie.
yeah, I mean, they probably were thinking like back in 19, like, oh man, this is like the pinnacle. Like this is as good as it's gonna get. It looks so realistic.
Yeah, and then of
And
course it doesn't hold up.
no, because this is like this is like a 25-year-old movie at this point. So,
Yeah. But
um, I really wish we could have gotten more of the suit actor parts, but that's just kind of how it is. But Iris's design being so elaborate with like the waving
Mhm.
tentacles and everything, it's pretty much impossible to do that.
Yeah, they were probably thinking like that's gonna be way too much. It'd probably be cheaper to do CG than have all the puppetry.
Mhm. But how this movie ends on a cliffhanger, which is interesting because uh after Gamera kills Iris, because like the whole point, the whole at this whole time during the movie is that a bunch of different Gausses are running around
Yeah.
Earth and they've been killing like random people. And all of a sudden, there's like this big swarm of Gauss monsters that just like appear out of nowhere at the very end of the movie. And Gamera's like all beaten and bloodied. And they're just like, oh no, what's going to happen? And then, Asagi's just basically like, Gamera says he's going to stay and fight until the fight is over, type of thing. Just
Hmm.
basically saying like he's either going to like kill all of them or he's going to die.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean there's some cool stuff like I think it's a train station they're in where like the huge fight happens and everything's crumbling, which once again is from the perspective of the people where stuff is falling on them, which I think is a cool angle to do.
Yeah. But I think overall, I mean, I probably would not give it a recommend, but
What? The best Gamera movie? Huh?
I know I'm upsetting all the Gamera fans. I'm a fake Gamera fan, sue me.
But no, I
But
agree. I felt after coming out of this one, I mean, I didn't even have the perspective of knowing if people liked it. I just was so like, I thought it was fine. There were some good ideas, but it just didn't feel like a Gamera movie anymore. It just didn't really fit in with, like what you said. I like my movies campier, and this just didn't fit the vibe of that anymore.
yeah, and I'm I'm excited to watch Gamera the Brave, which is the next one. So we'll
Mhm.
see what happens there because I think that one's more of a light-hearted type of movie compared to this one. So
Okay,
I'm
and
really
it is
interested to.
not a continuation of this one.
It is not. So this is the fine. This is a trilogy. It is complete.
Okay, so we'll never figure out what happened after this unless they do another game. Well, isn't there a Netflix camera?
There is a Netflix like anime series, yeah,
Gotcha. It probably does not
which
continue this.
which we will watch for the show.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
That's
I love Gamera. I'll do anything for him.
yeah, but we're getting real close though to the end of the line for Gamera, so we're gonna see what happens going forward. But I'm just gonna put a pin in that for now.
Okay.
But Nathan, what are we going to talk about next time?
Right, Ryan. On Tuesday, we are going to be talking about 1981's Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. And that one is streaming right now on Tubi.
That's good. I love the Joker, Dark Knight, and I remember that Scarecrow had his little cameo in the movie.
Oh
It's
yeah,
great.
yeah. I love it too. Yeah, we're watching Christopher Nolan's
Yeah,
Dark Knight.
yeah.
But Ryan,
With
what are
with the Scarecrow featuring
yeah, that's what it was called, the Dark, because they didn't think they could make a sequel without without Killian Murray. They were like, he has to be in it.
He's got to be
But
in the title.
yeah,
Uh,
but Ryan, what are we covering on Thursday?
well, Nathan, we are going to be talking about The Invaders from Mars from 1986, which is for free on Tubi right now.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to watch that.
Perfect. Me too. But if you have any thoughts and opinions about this episode, please email us over at driveanddoublepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow our Patreon at patreon.com/driveanddoublepodcast and check out the Patreon Drive and Double Feature Podcast. But till next time.
Until next time.